Well, good evening, everyone. Tom Leahy and Candace Suarez with Optimum Ed, and we're here with a group of wonderful families that are learning about our group service program to help young people with their college admissions and financial aid. First thing I want to share with you, and I'm going to share my screen real quickly. Give me just a second. First, I just want to, introduce you to Optimum Ed, our team of professionals that work with the students and families in our credentials. I'm not going to belabor the point, but needless to say, we have the experience and background to do what we do. So let's just get right into what this is all about. And it's about helping a young person prepare to launch and launch successfully. There's a lot of landmines out there. And the way to deal with it is process and planning. Now, so this is our process, and you can see that there are three basic pillars to that process that we follow: an admissions process, a marketing process, and a financial aid process. And they operate simultaneously in a lot of cases. As you can see with the admissions, the first step is to identify a college major, and that's through our career and academic assessment process. And we spend a great deal of time there because that's really the foundation for everything that comes after. If we can figure out, what makes sense in terms of a first-time career coming out of college, then the rest is planning backwards. I want to be an engineer when I makes sense to be an engineer. Well, then we need to have an engineering degree, and we need a college then that has an engineering college or program, that sort of thing. So I think pretty intuitive, and that starts our college search process. We marry that up with the needs and wants of the student in terms of the campus, culture, the programs, and that sort of thing. And then, of course, the money piece. If there's an issue with, cost and that sort of thing, it needs to be part of the planning process up front. We don't want to wait until we get into a school to try to figure out how to pay for it. That's a big mistake. We need, if paying is an issue, that needs to be part of the planning process up front. And it's the planning, it's the process that really greatly increases the chances that this whole thing called higher education is going to be successful, and we're going to experience return on investment. A return on investment of the time and energy the student spends in securing a degree, and the money that mom and dad spend in paying for that. And so we want to try to be as efficient as possible, especially with how things cost today. So this is sort of our template in terms of what we follow, and this is what we would be coaching your students through, as we talked about earlier. Some of it on a group basis, some on an individual basis, depending on the circumstances and the needs of the family and the student. All right. So as I said, the first step is a career and academic assessment. So we're going to jump into that. And Candace is going to kind of explain to you what the assessment's all about.
Yeah, so the assessment, it's a pretty rigorous assessment. It's not one of those quickie online things that spits out a couple jobs. It takes them about 45 minutes to an hour to complete on, the average student. And it looks at three different things. The first thing it looks at is thinking style. So it's going to give an overall learning index, and basically it assesses how the student processes information. So it gives the overall learning index, and then it gives four other indices, which would be verbal skill, verbal reasoning, numerical skill, and numerical reasoning. So it looks at all of those and gives like a score on those. And we weren't going to talk about the bell curve, but I think it's like, but I'm going to touch on it a little bit. So it's similar to that statistical representation of information. There we go. So the majority of the population is going to fall under that highest part of the bell curve. So that 4, 5, 6 range is going to be a good chunk of the population. And then 95% of the population is within 2 standard deviations of that. So we see a lot of 4, 5, 6, 7s, okay, in that range. So a 5 doesn't mean, oh my gosh, it's a 50%, I failed this test. That's the average, okay? We very rarely see a 10, we occasionally see 8s and 9s, very rarely see anything below, the 2 standard deviations on the other end. We like to say this too, is that the outliers, the 9s and 10s, the 1s and 2s, just mean that the student is more unique. And especially when we get into the personality trait section, we like to say that just means there might be a little bit less jobs because they are a little bit more unique, and that trait is just a little stronger if they're at those extremities. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So Candace, tell me, this may be a dumb question, but what are you graphing here? You're graphing the results of the assessment?
This is just to show you, so we'll show you what the report looks like for the number graph part, but yeah, they'll get a numerical score on a scale of 1 to 10 like this. So if you pretend the bell curve is over top of it, you'll see that the middle is that average population that would fall under that bell. Okay, kind of like an IQ score where 100 is average, 130 is gifted, kind of like that. Yeah. Okay. So we just like to describe that because some people, when they look at the numbers of this part of the results, they say, oh my God, I got a 2 in independence. What does that mean? I'm never going to be able to leave home and live on my own. That's not what that means at all. And we explain all of that. So we often withhold results until we explain it because people get these panic mind blocks when they see some of the numbers. And that's why we always start off showing that bell curve, just so it doesn't mean a pure 2 or a pure 9.
And you'll get, there'll be a actual written report as well that explains each bullet point. So that is really important to digest because that's, really explains what the numbers mean. Just looking at the numbers by themselves can be very misleading.
Yeah. And we also are in the business of having you take an assessment, print off the report and say, here you go. Good luck. We really spend a lot of time on it, really reviewing. We dedicate at least 2 or 3 sessions to making sure you understand it, making sure. And every session I have with a kid, I pull that out and I have discussions based upon what I'm seeing on there. If they're saying, well, I might be interested in this career over here. And I'm like, well, that career requires a high sociability, but you're lower in sociability, so that might not make sense. So I refer to it often. We like to call it art based on science. We utilize the information in it often. Yeah. So it's not just taking the thing and never seeing it again and sitting it in a drawer. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself, but so back to the bell. I'm sorry, go ahead.
My name is Andy. I got invited. Hi. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. So in looking at this, do you use this then in all aspects of helping kids find majors and find colleges?
We do. We use it in the whole,
Yeah, you'll see as we move through this how it evolves into the whole planning process of school selection, all of that. So
have you found that this is a pretty good predictor in terms of their professions that they choose? Have you been with kids long enough to see how that plays out?
I've been doing this for many, many years. I've not had one family tell me that we were off the mark.
Well, yeah. And it's funny because a lot of times when they first look at the numbers, they're confused. They don't understand it. But whenever we meet with families, like the numbers make so much sense and it really clicks, and it's a good picture of who the student is and where the direction that they
But
should
it's
head.
what you do with the information is where the
Yeah.
value is. It's like Candace said, art based on science.
Mhm.
If we just handed the report to the family, it would mean very little. It's what we do with it. It's the dialogue, the conversation that results from this information. That's where the value is, and then the results are always amazing in terms of what we end up with. And oftentimes, to be honest, the student ends up doing something that's not even in the report.
Well,
But the
because you'll
point
see
is, it's a
it
place to
shows them
start.
jobs, right? But
So
yeah.
we'll show you that.
Yeah. Well, and I tell everyone that this is my favorite part. Like I'm a counselor by training and experience. So I love the digging in and exploring and, and figuring out, the path that they should start out on. And I like to say that, it's really what they're going to do first. Because, the days are over when when you have to decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life when you're 17 years old, because, our careers and our paths change and grow. So this is just the first thing that they're going to do, and trying to have them understand that and just set that first step to be a good, solid one that they can grow from. So.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. All right. Yeah. So after the thinking style, then we go into the 9 different personality traits. And as you can see, this is a sample. So this is not an actual student, but this is basically what it looks like. And you can see, looking at that, it's kind of hard to decipher, but I'm going to go through and just give you a sketch definition of each one. And this is what we do when we go over the results. We do this on a group basis, as in general terms, like we're doing now. And then we also can do it one-on-one to give the student specific results as well. So energy level. Energy level doesn't necessarily mean your ability to run around and have a lot of energy. So all of these apply to the work setting. So a 9 or a 10 in energy level on this indicator would show that they prefer a work environment that can be a very fast pace. So they're making quick decisions. They're doing tasks very quickly. They can handle a lot of chaos around them, would be a 9 or a 10. A 1 or a 2 in this, they would prefer a work environment that's a lot more steady, slow, methodical, one thing at a time, might not be able to juggle lots of different activities at once. All right. So that's the extremes. And most people will fall somewhere in the middle, like the bell curve. But then there are some people that are just stronger indicators of high energy worker or a lower energy worker, needing the slower pace or the faster pace.
So I'm going to jump over here and just come down here to the bullets. So
just to show them what it looks like. Yeah.
So that you can see that the number is one thing, but come on. All right. Thinking style. Okay.
Yeah.
Thinking style bullets, but let's get down
So
here.
it gives the bullets for this individual
Okay,
person.
so here, see, energy level 7. Well, what does 7 mean, right? Well, here are the bullets, right? People can rely on you to finish your work on time. Typically work at a consistent, productive pace. You can act with a sense of urgency, even under pressure. Much more meaningful than a number, right? Mm-hmm. But so it's very important to read the. We're just using the summary graph tonight because it's an easy format to talk to.
Yeah.
Okay. But all right. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
That's fine. So the next one is assertiveness. And this is where it's assessing leadership, and not necessarily the ability to lead, but the need or desire to lead. So if you're a 9 or a 10 on the assertiveness scale, you're the kind of person that would walk into a room and immediately feel the need to start assigning tasks and, directing the room. All right. You would feel the need to lead in most situations where you're with people. If you're a 1 or a 2 in assertiveness, it doesn't mean you can't lead, but you would prefer to sit back and allow somebody else to take the lead. You're just a good, solid, steady worker, but don't really prefer the spotlight and the leadership piece. Okay. The next one is sociability. And this one is pretty much like it sounds, but according to the workplace. So if you're a 9 or a 10 in sociability, you would prefer to work in settings where you can collaborate, bounce ideas off of other people, and be surrounded by people and interact with them on a regular basis. If you were a 1 or a 2 in sociability, you prefer your own little space, your cubicle, your laptop, or a laboratory with rats or vials of chemicals. So that's the extremities of the sociability one.
Glad you didn't say virus. Okay.
I didn't know. The next one is manageability. This is your tendency to be a rule follower. Okay. So if you're a 9 or a 10 in manageability, you're going to be a policies and procedures rule follower, most of the time, or all of the time if you're a 10. So everything is about rules and policies and procedures. If you're a 1 or a 2 in manageability, you're a little bit more of a rebel. You walk outside of the lines with the rules. You're not really concerned about following policy as much. All right. The next one is attitude. This one is kind of like a glass half full, glass half empty, optimism, pessimism. If you're a 9 or a 10, you'd be more towards the, optimism, your belief that everything's going to work out okay. Like, sure, we'll try that new idea. Let's give it a go. I'm sure that it'll be successful. The boss is great. This is a great place to work. If you're a 1 or a 2 in attitude, you might be a little bit more pessimistic, much less willing to try new ideas because you don't have a real belief that they're going to work out well for you. So that would be the lower end of the attitude. Decisiveness is the speed at which you make decisions. A 9 or a 10 in decisiveness, with a firing range analogy, would be your ready, fire, aim. You make very fast decisions, maybe a little too fast without taking the time to really think about consequences and etc. So you make very fast decisions as a 9 or a 10. If you're a 1 or a 2, you're more ready, aim. You might get around to firing eventually, kind of that analysis paralysis part of decision making. So that would be the 1 or 2 on that one. Accommodating. This is your tendency to go along with the group, to allow, I always get this one messed up when I don't have the narrative in front of me. If you're a 9 or a 10 in accommodating, you are so generous with yourself that you'll be like, oh, okay, fine. We'll do it your way. No problem. We'll be so accommodating that you might be a little bit of a doormat. Okay. That you allow people to walk all over you a little bit. If you're a 1 or a 2 in accommodating, you're going to be the one that might walk all over everybody else. It's your way or the highway. You want to make sure that you get your opinion across at all costs. All right. That's a good one to be a medium in the middle. Independence does not mean your ability to go live on your own. This is how you approach work. If you're a 9 or a 10 in independence, you prefer to be given a task and pretty much left on your own to figure out how to do it. You're not a fan of being micromanaged. You don't really need the step-by-step directives. All right. If you're a 1 or a 2, you're less self-directed. You really need those directions, laid out for you, policies and procedures. Like, you want to know exactly what you're doing. You might even want someone to come in and check on you and say, good job on step number 1, move on to step number 2. All right. You need a little bit of support in doing things as opposed to being self-directed. And then the last one is objective judgment. So decisiveness talked about the speed at which we make decisions. Objective judgment is the way in which we make decisions. So a 9 or a 10 in objective judgment, that means you rely on facts and data and past experiences to make decisions. You'd be definitely a pros and cons list maker. You'd be analyzing, if this happens, then this might happen, and really facts and data on decision making. If you're a 1 or a 2 in objective judgment, you are more of a feelings, intuition, and you go with your gut more in decision making. All right, so that's the 9 personality traits. You guys have any questions about those?
One thing that I was wondering, is there a lot of changes in the answers between a junior in high school and a freshman in college?
No, there wouldn't be.
In fact, if you took it as a 16-year-old and you took it again at 55, the deliverables of the assessment would not change. And what I mean by deliverables, the jobs that are reflected as being appropriate for the profile will not change. That doesn't mean there will not be a shift, a little bit in personality or in intelligence, in the thinking style, but not enough, because there's so many variables involved in creating the profile that delivers that battery of jobs, that it's going to take one out or put a new one in.
Well, I coach adults too, and I've given this exact same assessment to, women in her 60s, people in their 20s and 30s, and I gave it to my 8th grader, and the level of accuracy in going over the results is the same. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Have you ever given it to someone who's 16 and then given it to them again a few years later to see if there's a difference?
I haven't. No,
we haven't.
No, but I think, the company,
the experts that build this thing, that the assessment tool that we use, stands by that assertion. So.
Yeah. And I just learned this because I just met the person that handles this with us. Like, it's the same overarching company. They make textbooks. They do the DISC assessment, if you've ever heard of that one. So they have some pretty high level credentials behind them too. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to the report for the interest. I'll move you all out of the way so I can scroll.
Yeah. So the third circle, if we go back to the circles, we had the thinking style, we had the personality traits, and then the last thing is the interest. So the way they answer the questions, these are the 6 interest categories that will be determined after they take the assessment, and the assessment gives them their top 3 in order: their first, driver, second, and third. These are in no particular order. I'll just kind of explain to you what the 6 are. So the first one is enterprising. And those that come up high in enterprising, it indicates that activities that persuading others, presenting ideas, sales, that type of career. The next one is financial administrative. It doesn't not necessarily mean they're going to work in a bank. It just means business procedures, organizing information. The next one is people services, which is pretty much the way it sounds. So this would be careers. They would have a need to help others, like teachers, counselors, being of service to others, having an impact on people. Technical is scientific, technical data research. Mechanical is working with tools, equipment, builders, hands-on kind of work. And then creative doesn't necessarily mean that you're creating pieces of music or creating artwork, but it can. Creative can also mean ideas, original thinkers, big picture ideas, and generating new and improved ways of doing things. So those are the 6 interest categories. Any questions about those? Okay. All right.
So at the end of the obviously, we've seen our 3 areas that make up the profile, and coming out of that, then the report delivers a list of jobs that are appropriate for that profile, based upon those, what people who have a similar profile are doing. So, we say you should be a sheriff. It's because sheriffs have your type of personality, thinking style, and interests.
And again, I think the purpose of this is just because I think, our kids have this narrow view of the world, of their idea of what's out there in the world of work. And I think that this, even though some of them sound really off the wall, it just gives them an idea of what's out there. And it gives them like a cluster or a direction in which to investigate and think about. And that's what we'll show you too. And a lot of times they don't necessarily land on one of these particular careers, but it's a conversation and it's a starting point and it's a place to start researching, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So let's just see. So when the student receives the reports, they're PDF, and these links are live. So you can click on the number out to the side. I'm going to stop sharing and reshare because I'm going out to the internet now. So it'll take you out to a website called the ONET, which is it's a huge website with all sorts of information about these jobs. It's updated on a annual basis. So here's the umbrella career category types of, the different titles that you might hold doing this kind of work. It gives you day in the life of information. What do you do? What tasks you perform on a daily basis. And you do details that it'll even tell you if it's core or supplemental to the job. And so, this is all about understanding what's involved in this type of work, technology, knowledge, skills, abilities, work activities. So does this make sense to me? Obviously it's a match for my profile, but is this something that I really feel I can get my heart and mind around in terms of what they're saying I have to do on a daily basis? What the activities are, the values I have to have, and that sort of thing. Then it describes, the education and training that's needed. It even tells you, the educational level of people who are doing this kind of work. And then it gives you associated jobs. If you don't like that job, well, here's some other suggestion that you might want to look at. And then that's the passion piece, right? And what we're trying to do is we're trying to combine passion with viability, right? We want to be able to like the work we're doing, to, embrace the work we're doing, but it's also important that work provides an income and a livelihood, so that as parents, we all know that when our child goes off to college or to advanced training after high school, whatever, we want them to launch and be able to be on their own, and not have to come back home, right? And be a tenant rather than, viable on their own, as their own person. So that
Did you have a question? I don't know who. Is that a hand raise or?
Yeah. So this is Mike O'Neill. I raised my hand.
Yeah.
So is there any particular bias within the results towards white collar or blue collar occupations?
Yeah, good question. It's depending on how the student answers the education question at the end of the assessment. So if they mark high school, the jobs will be skewed to those jobs that require a high school education. If they mark 4-year college, then obviously the job will be elevated to the jobs that require that level of education. And so that's, it's really dependent on what the students' plans are. So we always encourage our students to mark 4-year college. It's easier to have a conversation going backwards down, to a lower educational required job than it is to go forward. So, but we have that circumstance all the time where we have a student that's not sure, and we have to, try to figure out, based on the information that we have, what makes sense in terms of, are we going into a trade or what that might look like. But
well, and the personality assessment piece,
right,
and the interest piece really helps that conversation too. So you know, it really helps if they're highly mechanical, technical, you know, and they love, you know, we also have a conversation about what they love to do.
Mhm.
And if they're talking about, you know, I love to build, I love to do this, I love to be outside, you know, then we gear the conversation in that direction. You know, we like to recommend that they choose 4-year if they're not sure, just because it's easier to back out than to be given a list of the blue collar jobs if they might be going to college, if that makes sense.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So that's, you know, so that top piece is all about the, you know, the passion, the heart and mind thing. But then, you know, the viability piece also is addressed here. You can put any state you want in here, zip code. So we got Virginia and a city zip code, and you click on it. And so we can compare salary ranges for Richmond versus Virginia versus United States. So you can see where you're starting out, and where you might top out at if you get to the top of your profession. So again, this is information that you can use to make a decision about my investment in education. What is it going to deliver, right? In terms of beginning, you know, starting salary, that sort of thing. And what are the potential? And then we can do the same thing in terms of outlook. So we can, you know, so this type of work is growing 11% here in Virginia, in the United States, 5%. A big, you know, 2,710 jobs that you'd be competing for each year, you know, in the state of Virginia. So again, that's a pretty good number. You know, if that was a 27, maybe, you know, we know that if this is something we really want to pursue, then we're probably going to have to look outside the borders of Virginia to find work, because we're only, you know, competing for very few number of jobs here in Virginia. But this looks pretty good in terms of what's available on a year-over-year basis in terms of job openings. So, you know, armed with this information, you know, we can make better decisions about the direction we're going to go. And again, as we started the conversation, this is not about what you're going to be doing the rest of your life. This is about figuring out what makes sense now in terms of what your first job and you know, career opportunity may be, and creating that academic path, and discovering that, you know, what that college major is we need to pursue, so that we cut down on the academic chaos that occurs so often when a student goes off to college without having thought about this ahead of time. You know, and with the cost of college today, most families can't afford to send their child off to school to find themselves. So we need to do that planning, and that consideration needs to be taken ahead of us, you know, paying the tuition bills, because we can be much more efficient, and we greatly increase the chances of success and getting a return on an investment, you know. So that's what it's all about. So this is where it starts. This is the foundation for everything that comes after. Because coming out of this, then we can determine academic path. And if it's college, we can use that to determine what majors we need available. And then obviously that starts to drive the college selection process, right? We want to pursue this college major. We better have a college that on our list, there are colleges on our list that have that major available. It doesn't make sense not to. So I think that's pretty intuitive. And then we marry that up with the needs and wants of the student in terms of a college campus. You know, they're all different. They all have different personalities, the culture, the sport programs. What makes sense? What's the best fit for that student in terms of the school and the campus? And then the money piece, you know, if that's needs to be brought in. So those three things come together to tell us what schools we should be targeting, and in terms of our, you know, vetting process as we move forward. And again, that's sort of the, you know, it's the missions column. And then of course we're working on, you know, the high school resume at the same time, those extracurriculars and things that need to be done to be competitive. You know, academics are important, obviously, but the more prestigious the school is that we're looking at, the more important those other things become that we bring to the table, other than GPA and standardized test scores. They open the door, but it's those other things, those other qualities, the other skills that you bring to that campus are what's going to get you, selected. So that's important. We start working on that as well as we move forward. And then, hopefully we have 8 schools or so that we end up applying to, and we help with that whole process, essay writing and all that. Of course, there's financial aid piece as well that we do. So that's part of the planning process, is determining, need-based eligibility, comparing it to the cost of schools, all that. So, and now we're gonna, what makes us unique is that we engage technology in this process, and it makes so much sense for the student, because it allows them to be organized and focused. Everything's in one place. And so what I want to do now is to take you to our admissions platform and demonstrate for you the power of this tool that we can put in the students' hands to really, I love the term efficient in the process of applying for college. So let's take a look at that real quick. And again, this is a secure private site. The advisor has has their side to it, and the student has their side, and we can communicate, we can share documents and all that through this platform.
Yeah, and you'll see it's just a great way to project manage the whole thing. Instead of trying to come up with your own Excel spreadsheets and making lists and comparing and things, it does it all for you and keeps everything organized. You still have to go onto the application sites. I just totally Common App and all of those to do the application, but this keeps.
But there's a link on the there's a link to that here.
Yeah,
all that. So
it just organizes.
Do the colleges have access to? Do they know if we're? How am I trying to ask this? Do the colleges know if you're using, or if we would be using an assistant such as yourselves? And if they do, is that something that they look favorably on, or is it something that looks like we're using a crutch?
They wouldn't know, because you don't apply or do anything through our site. It's just organization,
Right.
And support in the college search and the landing on the major.
Yeah, unless you tell them. they're not going to know.
And is that something that you would? I mean, I know that I'm probably jumping ahead, but is that something that they would look favorably upon? Like, oh, you're applying to the engineering school and you use this program. That means that perhaps you're a more viable candidate. Or
no, I think you're weak. Yeah, I think you're reading more into it than there is. I don't. The years ago when I first started in this business, the schools were, I guess, leery of consultants just because it was a new industry. There was a lot of uncertainty and that sort of thing. Today, it's a growing industry. There's so many of us across the country. Schools know that we're out there and that families are using assistance in a lot of cases. But does it affect the admissions decision? And it should have no impact on the process at all. Except hopefully what we do helps the student, obviously. It makes, there's a lot of, it's just relieves a lot of stress on the part of the family in terms of having somebody running after this stuff for you. Oh, and gosh, we talk to your teenager about stuff, Yeah.
That's my favorite part. I like to talk to kids.
Anyway, so
I like to have a classroom. Like I like to have a group of them. Like
So this is what the student sees when they log in. This is Jack, and so you can see that on his dashboard There's a message board. There, you know, if there's homework that we have given them, you know, college homework, it would be here. But Jack has actually graduated, so he is pretty much done. But you can see there's you know, the string of conversation here between the consultant and Jack is maintained as well. So that's up front. Over here on the side, let's see, we've got information about testing, you know, so we keep track of standardized test results, which is important. Over here, you've got, you know, where you keep, you know, you can update your profile. GPA is important. We'll show you why in a minute. Keychain, this is where you can keep information about other websites that you access, your password and username. So it's kept safe and secure, and you don't have to worry about remembering it. It's right there. And you can set up, you know, this so you get notifications about things on your phone. And you know, so that's all available. Let's see, calendar, there's a calendar. So, you know, it's preloaded with, you know, test dates. If we create a meeting, it shows up here. The student can use this as their calendar if they want, and they can, you know, link, you know, if they have a different calendar, they can link it to this calendar, as we can do with so many other technology today, but that is available. Again, this is their homework list. Emails, again, the string of email conversations. And then there's, we have preloaded a whole list of different information documents that can be used, you know, just to be better informed about, you know, process and that sort of thing. And also the results of their assessment are also dropped in here, so they don't have to worry about keeping paper copies of anything. Everything is right here. Let's see, let's go to the colleges. So the college tab, this is really the neat part. So you've got, you know, your list of colleges. So, you know, the advisor can suggest colleges, but here is the students list, right? And it shows you, you know, one, where the status of that school in terms of your admissions process. It also shows you what platforms being used, Common App, Coalition, is, you know, demonstrated here where they are. This one's been, you know, obviously this needs to be updated, but you can see that where they are in the process. It gives you a map of where the schools are. So if you want to see geographically the dispersion of the schools that you're looking at, you can do that. And then you add, subtract schools as you wish. we color code. We go in based on GPA and test scores. We can go in and determine competitiveness, and you can see here, this is why we want the test scores and GPA, because we can overlay that on top of the average for the freshman profile for that school. Here's Jack's 3.9, for Alabama 3.71. So obviously he's just above average there, and lays his test scores on top of 50% performance for that school. So we can see readily that it's very possible for Jack to get in to Alabama. At least that's our assessment. And if you look at our color coding, that is, blue is possible. I think, anyway, there's a legend. Orange is reach, green is you can walk in, and red is don't bother, right? Oh, here it is right here. Yeah. So let's see, let's open that up again. Because up here across the top, there's a place for notes. Say you visited Alabama and you want to put a note in about your visit. You put that in here. Touch of a button, what are the majors that are available? What level of academics do they have for each major that they have available? Essays, in the application process right here, what essays are required, so we can use this to group the essays and manage the writing requirements. Obviously schools are opening back up, but there's still some that are not open. So, in that case, we provide FISC guide, which is sort of a narrative of the history and culture of the school to give you a good feel for that school. And there's also the access to virtual tours as well under research, campus tours. You can go to and watch a virtual tour of the school. So if you can't visit, at least between the FISC guide and the virtual tour, you should be able to get a pretty good feel for the school, at least in terms of do I want to apply or not? And that's really what the first step in the process. And then, for each school, we can set up the application, what's required in the application process and keep track of it here as well. So like you said, everything is right here, orderly, keeps them organized, keeps them focused. I just want to jump back here to the files real quick, because the other thing that we provide under this folder, access scholarships, come on.
Download button.
Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you.
It's a different format.
Yeah,
So it used to just be a click.
Yeah, so it should come up here in a minute. Oh, here. All right. Well, that's not it. All right. Come on. Where did it go? Let me go back. Oh, here. Okay, so it'll give you access to a proprietary search engine for outside private scholarship. So you come in here, you put in your profile, all the things that you're doing, family background, all that sort of thing, and you search, and it gives you a list of outside of private scholarships that you could be eligible to apply for, and it gives you, the due date, how much it's for, gives you the description of the scholarship and what you have to do to apply for it, and it gives you a link to actually apply for that scholarship. So it's a way to really make looking for money outside of the federal government, the state government, collegiate money, a way to access those other opportunities that are available out there to help students pay for college. So all of that is available through the platform. I think I touched on everything. Did I not? So
yeah, I can't think of
so
anything.
Anyway, that's
yeah.
So through engaging OptiMed, those things are available to your student, and as well as combining that with I'm going to share again. I'm sorry. I got one other thing I want to. No, let me get.
I'm losing my light from my front window. It's shadowy and dark in here.
That's not what I want. Let me just a second. Let's see. Excuse me. Okay, there it is. All right. Okay, so this is kind of gives you an idea of sort of our parent group program. So this could be applied, to homeschool families, to athletic organizations, whatever. If there's a group of families that want to come together and engage us as a group, 6 to 10 families. This is the things that are offered as well as what we just described. There's basically on average 9 individual private counseling sessions, and then there's workshops that are also provided that cover other parts of the process that we can deal with on an educational basis. So that's our program that and it's about a third of the cost of what individual engagement would be.
Do the people that sign up, or the families, do their children have to be kind of at the same stage? So for example, should they all be rising juniors in order to cover the information at the same time?
We talked about that option too. So the way we're planning it is that the workshops will be presented once. So whether your child's a freshman or a junior, they could hear the workshop information. They can do the assessment at any time. Because we said, it doesn't really matter where in the high school process, because we have freshmen that take it, as well as juniors and seniors. So the assessment, the workshop presentation will be given once, but then those individual counseling sessions, you can save them until they're a junior and need the more intensive individual work, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it would, like if you engage this and your student is maybe only a sophomore, and they're not really in the process, they can do the workshops with everybody who's older, but then, you'd be just with us longer
And
for the individual sessions.
Yeah. And I promise you, if you know anything about Candace and I, if we have to meet with a student 12 times, we'll meet with them.
We
12.
would. Yes. And we'll help edit their essays on a Sunday afternoon and all of that.
This is just sort of a framework to work off of, because I'm sure there'll be students that we only need to meet with us 6 times. So, they're that sort of thing. So I think it'll all work out.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, it's all about doing what's necessary to help that student be successful, because we don't want to set the worst that we can do is have our child fail. It's so hard to overcome that, the loss of self-esteem and self-confidence that results in.
I hate to keep dominating your questions, but I'm looking at your group of 6 to 10 families, but what if there are multiple children in each family? How does that addressed?
That's fine. This is just a guide. We're,
I would say 6 to 10
students,
maybe.
I guess. Yeah. If you're
Maybe.
Looking at it, doing a classroom kind of environment,
Yeah.
probably 6 to 10
Mm-hmm.
students. If we got, 3 families with twins or triplets, I guess that's, or
waiting.
if you've got 3 kids that you want to work with us of different ages. Yeah, I think it's a conversation. We'll work it out. This is just simply really a guide to put the program in place. It's not cut in stone, carved in stone.
Jenny, what were you going to say?
I think Terry she got knocked off and she's waiting to get back in.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah. So I had a question too. So we talked about, you mentioned the consultant. So so Tom, you and Candace both are consultants, or do you have other consultants, or is this the 2 of you?
Just the 2 of us.
We're the team that works with the students. Yes.
And we generally do it together as well. We find that I'm sorry, my dog is barking. We kind of bring something different to the table. So we can kind of each bring our own, experiences and things to it. So it's been working really well. Any other questions?
If you want to go to our website, optimumedcenter.com, there's a lot more information there. There are, information, testimonials, videos of other families that we've worked with and that sort of thing, schools that we've gotten students in and all that sort of thing. So all that good propaganda is out there. So
can you talk a little bit about the price breakdown and how that would work either individually or with a group, if we could get 6 families to to do it together?
Yes. So the cost is dependent upon the number of students we're working with. So it's scaled based on that, and it's really driven by. Is that right, Candace? It's driven by.
I think we decided if we were doing the 6 to 10 families as one group, it was just the one price.
Okay, which
Yeah.
was
$14.95.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was $14.95 per student in that group.
Right.
Yeah, per student. And it's what the total cost for the assessment and the platform and the whole process for an individual family is, Tom, don't it's like 3,500, Tom?
3,650
3,650, everything
for
together.
a family to engage us on an individual basis.
Yeah, so it's a significant savings because it saves a lot of time to be able to administer a lot of those things on a group basis.
Okay. So, and I think we talked, Tom, the last time you and I spoke about you could just start with the assessment at first. Is that still an option to start there and then see?
Well, it is engaging as a family, individual family. If you want to do this group thing, then it would have, it'd be all in because of the cost savings involved in the group model. But as an individual family, yes, you could just take the assessment.
Yeah, and as an individual family, the assessment and 2 sessions is $495. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, great. So if we got at least 6 children, 6 individuals, right, together, then we could try to do the group.
The group, yes. Mm-hmm. And so what we our expectation is that you would, this group would engage us as exactly that. So, for example, we call it the O'Neill group, right? So you would contract with us as the O'Neill group, and you would pay us for the group. In other words, so we're not having to invoice in 6 to 10 separate families.
Okay. Right. So you'd have to have a coordinator of the group who collects.
Somebody would facilitate the group, right? Yeah, that's our expectation, right?
And would collect money from the families and then.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But it's a lump sum up front, right?
Well, we can talk about that. I mean, I have no problem with splitting it up into a couple of payments if that is more palatable to the families involved. We can certainly talk about that.
Okay.
Well, and we've talked about doing fully Zoom or some sort of hybrid type of situation as things start to open up. We'd be happy to entertain the being in person, but then having some people Zoom and then recording. Like we're open to. We've done all of those situations in private schools and networking things that we do, so we're comfortable with whatever works for the group. Well, we've even talked about, like, I like to have groups of kids, like we even talked about if we did in person, like, Tom could do a workshop kind of thing with the parents and I could do something separate with the kids, we could do that kind of stuff too.
Right.
As an option, depending on, we can customize things a little bit.
And, and we can certainly do that in person if that's desirable. Space to do that. Or we can do it Zoom, whichever makes most sense.
I don't want to stare at blank squares of teenagers on Zoom though. Just
that's
for the record.
Really, it's hard. Yeah. Cause they don't open their cameras.
They don't turn their cameras on.
Yeah. So, but, so, I mean, this is, for us, this is kind of a beta test, right? So this is all kind of changed complexion since the last time we talked, Jenny. because we were coming out of our engagements with, the private K-12 schools, and we thought this would be a great way for homeschoolers as well. But as we moved forward, it's kind of taken on a different complexion. So that's why we're sort of, having, answering the questions, the way we are. But yeah, we'd love to have you guys be our test group.
All right. Well, I'll send the recording out to some other folks who couldn't make
Okay.
it. And talk to my husband and talk to Andy and Terry and see what they think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Can I
Yeah,
ask one last question?